Hello, Warriors, Mike Dunleavy, Joe Lacob, what are you guys doing? If you're a truly passionate fan of the NBA, which you are if you're on this channel, you know that today was a huge day in terms of free agent signing. Shams Charania has been reporting things left and right about this player signing with this team, that player signing with that team, just these players that are on the free agency list, at least the ones that are really wanted, are being taken off the board real fast. So what have the Warriors been up to? And what are some names that are of or should be of particular interest to the Warriors for the upcoming season? We're gonna go over 5 primary names that are still available in the free agency list, and we'll go over some names that are under the radar but could be quite useful for the Warriors. And given the Warriors' current salary situation, well, they're gonna have to scour for talent and guys that could potentially fit really well with the group of guys that they already have. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and that like button so that this video gets out to all the Warriors fans out there. Let's get straight to it. If you haven't heard already, Kevon Looney is no longer with the Golden State Warriors. He spent his entire career with the Warriors after getting drafted by them, and he's contributed to this team getting 3 championships in his time with this team. I'm sure he would have loved to stay with the team, but the Pelicans offered him a 2-year deal worth $16 million, something that the Warriors were not going to offer him and something that he could not turn down. We all know that Loon has some limitations in his game, and he's really more of an intangible piece that you can use in different situations, different matchups in the playoffs. But as I said, it's pretty situational. For some matchups he may be viable, for some other matchups he may not be. And offensively, obviously, he offers very little. So I guess it was truly time for both sides to move on and move forward. Best of luck to Kevon Looney. If it wasn't for him in that 21-22 season, in particular in the second round against the Grizzlies, I don't know that the Warriors would be able to overcome that team with the injuries that they were already dealing with if Kevon Looney didn't come through and give Mike Brown some huge minutes. I believe he played like 35 minutes in one of those games and grabbed like 20 rebounds, completely outplayed Steven Adams. He was incredible in that series down the stretch. So best of luck. Big shout out to Kevon Looney. But now that the Warriors have lost Kevon Looney, and now their depth chart is just Trayce Jackson-Davis and Quinton Post, and I don't want Quinton Post on this roster for the upcoming season because, yes, he is a sniper shooter and he has the potential to get even better at that in the upcoming season, but defensively, it's such a joke. Steve Kerr tried to use him throughout the course of the regular season and then try to use him in the playoffs only to realize that he's non-viable. He's not the type of player that you go into the playoffs with and rely on defensively, rebounding wise, toughness, grit, movement, mobility, versatility, all these things Quinton Post just doesn't have in his game. It doesn't matter if he massively improves his 3-point shooting if he can't hold up at the center spot on the other end of the floor when it matters the most in the playoffs. He's a regular season player. He's not a postseason player. And players that are like that shouldn't be on the Warriors roster when the Warriors are still trying to compete for a title with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, these veterans. So word is that they are aggressively going after Al Horford now. Al Horford is an incredible player when it comes to playoff performance. He has just been in the playoffs year after year after year. Impactful player is just the best way to put it. He would be a huge upgrade over Kevon Looney just from an all-around standpoint. Al Horford is just so versatile. He can shoot from the 3-point line. He can be that stretch 5 force that the Warriors have been looking for. Great court awareness, great passer, great intangibles guy, toughness on defense, good rebounder, all these things. The problem with Al Horford is that he's 39 years old. He just turned 39. How many centers do we know that can play a viable role going into 39 and into 40 by the time he gets to the playoffs? That is the one huge concern that I have when it comes to the Warriors going after Al Horford and relying heavily on a 39-year-old when you already have a trio of older guys. Steph Curry is about to be 38 by the playoffs, and then you got Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, who are also about to be 36 years old. You're just gonna rely on a whole bunch of guys that are approaching 40 I don't know. That's a tough one. But honestly, if they can bring Al Horford off the bench as a bench player, that would be incredible value for the Warriors. Honestly, he still would provide more value than any of the centers that are on the Warriors roster. And again, with Kevon Looney off the board, the Warriors must fill that center spot. So on their wish list right now, Al Horford, I guess, would be number 1. Number 2 on that list would be DeAnthony Melton, who is a free agent this summer, and he could potentially come back to the Warriors. Yes, the Warriors could potentially bring back DeAnthony Melton, hopefully on a very reasonable deal. The Warriors were incredible when they incorporated DeAnthony Melton into the equation. Even when they were going with some of the smaller lineups that they were going with DeAnthony Melton in there, it was looking really nice. And the team got off to like a 9-2 start with DeAnthony Melton in the equation. And he's just one of those guys. Veterans, really good POA, really reliable shooter, is capable of creating off the dribble himself, and fits really well next to Steph Curry, even though he is a smaller guy. So a reliable veteran like that with multiple skill sets, and preferably he'd be like the second POA type that is on the roster, because they're about to lose GP2. I think so. And DeAnthony Melton would be the perfect replacement. And the thing about his ACL injury was that it wasn't a full tear. It's just that the medical staff determined that it's better for him to take care of it now so that he doesn't suffer something worse if he decided to, I don't know, like rehab and then come back on it or something like that at some point last season. And yes, given that a lot of the names that the Warriors would have had interest in are already off the board, a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for example, would have been a terrific addition for a team like the Warriors. But he's now signed with the Atlanta Hawks. He got signed by them today. He has more size, more length, and can do a lot of the things that DeAnthony Melton does. But yes, he's off the board. The Warriors are in need of multiple really good elite POA types, and Melton coming back and joining Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, this would be a huge addition for the Warriors if he can be one of the pieces that ends up coming off the bench. Number 3 on the list may surprise you a little bit, but for me, it's Dante Exum. Dante Exum is currently a free agent. He got a chance with the Mavericks and he showed a lot in my opinion. You know, he was a former 5th overall pick. He never really quite panned out and he's kind of a journeyman at this point. But he's really reinvented his game. He's been lights out from the 3-point line with the Mavericks for the last couple of seasons. Yeah, he shot 49% 2 seasons ago, which is insane. And then he shot 43% last season. Really reliable as an open spot shooter. And the Warriors have desperately needed somebody who can play defense and provide 3-point shots. The 3D guy. He's 29 years old, probably in his prime at this point, 6'5", so he's got a little size on him. Very good and tenacious perimeter defender. Very efficient from the field as well. One of those guys who doesn't care about getting his and all these things. All he cares about is being the type of player that can help a team compete and just completely and utterly do his job as a role player. And these are the types of players that the Warriors are looking for. So that's another potential name that the Warriors can go after completely under the radar. I think he could fit really well with the Warriors. Now the 4th guy on the list may surprise you a little bit because he's a very under the radar kind of guy. I don't think a whole lot of people know who he is even. And honestly, I don't even really know how to say his name properly, but it's Sandro Mamukelashvili. I think I said it right. Mamukelashvili. He's been with the Spurs over the last 3 seasons, and whenever I've seen him play, he plays with a lot of confidence, and he plays like the actual position that he's at, which is power forward or center. He's listed as 6'9". It's weird. In some places, he's listed as 6'11", but he's 240 pounds, shot 37% from the 3-point line, 50% from the field, and he's just a really solid player who does his job at his position, tough-minded, plays defense, goes after rebounds, and has a wingspan of 7'1". I suppose you could call him a really poor man's version of Al Horford, but he's 26 years old and entering his prime. One thing for certain is that I would much rather rather have a guy like this. He's very reliable coming off the bench than somebody like Quinton Post. Quinton Post is not a real player. I'm not interested in the Warriors holding on to him and trying to develop him. The guy's 25 years old. There's really not that much to develop. He is who he is at this point, and he's shown me way too much defensively, and I'm not interested in regular season players. I am interested in dogs. I am interested in tough guys that can grab rebounds and actually keep them, is able to put a body on somebody, is light off their feet, which this guy happens to be. And given that he shot 37% from the three-point line last season, if he knew that he was going to the Warriors, obviously he would really work on that three-point shooting in the off-season. And I think he has the potential to really help the Warriors as a floor spacer and just a really smart player, veteran type of guy who knows where to be, who knows what to do. Now, the last guy on my list, I don't know how to feel about this guy. He's one of those players who's really talented, is able to score and get his buckets, is a pretty good rebounder when he wants to be, and he just got bought out by the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Warriors seem to be the favorites in terms of possibly landing this guy. And there's no denying that this guy is a talented scorer at the center spot. But you know me, I need possession by possession players at that center spot. You just can't have guys taking possessions off, watching other guys get rebound, failing to hustle, and do all the fundamental things that help you win basketball games. Is he capable of doing more under the guidance of guys like Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler? Maybe. It will be a calculated risk. But I do know that he was the starting center of a team that won 60 plus games when he was with the Suns. And honestly, the name Vucevic is still floating around when it comes to a possible sign and trade deal for Jonathan Kuminga. And honestly, I think I would rather have Ayton than Vucevic. Vucevic, at least with Ayton, with effort, there can be something there defensively. With a guy like Vucevic, it's not that he doesn't try, it's just a lack of capability. I mean, to me, a guy like Vucevic is like David Lee 2.0, and you didn't know me back then, but I spent roughly like 3 years back in the early 2010s pleading for the Warriors to trade David Lee because the Warriors can never reach the promised land with David Lee as their primary power forward playing a vital role for this team. The guy is a joke on defense, and because he's a scorer, they overly prioritize getting him the ball. This guy is not a real player that you try to contend with in the playoffs. Michael Jordan, if he had David Lee as his power forward, he never would have won a title. Not a single one. It just doesn't happen when your primary power forward is a guy like David Lee. And I kind of feel similarly about a guy like Vucevic. And to be honest with you, Ayton might not be that far, but at the same time, offensively, it could be really potent with the team that the Warriors already have. Ayton may not be a three-point shooter, but he's really good in that mid-range. And this is a guy that you actually really gotta guard in the post. But again, is that what the Warriors need with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler already on board for the scoring? I mean, he would be like a third option type, which means he doesn't have to be overly used on offense. And maybe they can turn him into a more viable defender at center. But given the fact that he was bought out by the Blazers, he could be had for a much cheaper price than what he's worth. But yes, those are the 5 primary names that are on top of my list as of right now. Now, obviously, there are some major other names that I haven't brought up, only because these guys are more of a trade candidate. If the Warriors try to do a sign-in trade with Jonathan Kuminga, or just try to trade for some guys that are available in the offseason for a trade. Obviously, in my previous video, I already mentioned my desire for the Warriors to go after Andrew Wiggins. Herb Jones's name has come up as a possibility for the Warriors to try to go after as a trade candidate piece. And obviously with the Bulls, they have both Kobe White and Lonzo Ball. They're trying to get rid of at least one of those guys. But as for trade candidate pieces, I'll probably have to cover that in another video. Now, some other under the radar type of players that the Warriors could potentially have some interest in, should they not be able to get some of the names that I would really prefer that they try to go after. There are 2 names that I have relative interest in, and then there are 2 kind of lukewarmish guys that I do feel like has the potential to fit in pretty well with the Warriors. And here are some of those names. Amir Coffey of the Clippers is a free agent, and man, he could really potentially provide some under the radar. He's really undervalued, I feel. Anytime this guy has been asked to step up for the Clippers because a starter is missing or somebody on the bench is missing and his name is called up, the guy is really good whenever I've seen him play. He's just a really smart player, knows where to be, knows how to play, knows how to cut, is a really reliable standstill shooter, a positionally sound defender, a guy with some size. He's 6'7", 210 pounds, probably roughly the size of Andrew Wiggins. Really efficient. He played 24 minutes per game last season for the Clippers, shot 47% from the field, 41% from the three-point line, and almost 90% from the free throw line. This guy can really give you some buckets, and he's listed as shooting guard. So he's multi-position eligible. He could be a shooting guard, he could be a small forward. I mean, that kind of efficiency, low-key, he's like a poor man's Otto Porter Jr. And he's just 28 years old. He's literally in his prime right now. You know, I'm actually inclined to say I may be more interested in Amir Coffey than Dante Exum. Yes, because the Warriors could really use a guy who is more reliable as a veteran scorer. Fourth option, fifth option, these guys are important too. All these pieces that are reliable from 1 through 5, 1 through 9, these are the types of guys that help you win titles when you have top guys like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Yeah, to be honest with you, I prefer a guy like Amir Coffey over a guy like Moses Moody all day and night. I'm sorry, Moses Moody, not reliable enough. He's just not showing me enough at the end of the day in his 4th year last season, in the playoffs, just all over the map, man. You can't have guys like that on your roster. Just not good enough. The other name of interest as a veteran POA type is Delon Wright. He was with the Knicks this past season, and I was wondering why he wasn't getting minutes in the playoffs because he's a pretty good defender. I mean, just much more reliable than, I don't remember his name. He kind of looks like a chipmunk. He's a point guard for the Knicks. Tips tried to give him some minutes and he was doing some ridiculous things, and then he eventually got replaced by Delon Wright, who was, for the most part, very reliable when he was given the minutes. Very tough guy, really good POA defender, has some guard-like qualities, handling the ball when he needs to, is capable of shooting the three-point shot. Defensively, I would 10 times more rely on a guy like this than, say, Podziemski. And obviously, I'm talking about a 16-game situation in the playoffs. Veterans. Don't need to be relying on a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, guys that are too young, too inexperienced, not good enough on defense, too inconsistent. These are not the types of players that help you win titles. And 2 other names I'm going to mention really quick. Torrey Craig and Jay Crowder. Just veteran types, guys with size, guys that are capable of being very versatile defensively, guys that are capable of helping out on the boards if necessary, guys that can hit an open shot, hit an open three, guys that have been there, done that, hard-nosed players that can be relied upon when necessary, if necessary, in the playoffs. These are the types of players that I am interested in. Players that you can go to and know that they're not going to be crapping their pants in the playoffs because they're inexperienced and they haven't been there. Anyway, I've given you enough names in this video. So far, again, the Warriors have done absolutely nothing. They've just been in the rumors. The only actual move that they've made this offseason is signing Nick Kerr onto the staff, the coaching staff. Pfft, are you serious? Nick Kerr is now on the staff with his father, Steve Kerr. What in the... Anyway, ultimately, the Warriors have a great situation, obviously, with Jimmy Butler due to play a full season next to Steph Curry. And again, I'm just going to try to remind you guys as much as I can that with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler on the floor at the same time, the Warriors went 20-3. Now they just need to clean up on the nuances and the details of the remaining spots on their roster, recognize which players are playoff viable and which players are not going to be playoff viable. So they are not far off. Even if they could just go get somebody like DeAnthony Melton, oh my goodness, that would be incredible for the Warriors. If they went and got Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton, I would be really happy with their situation going into next season. But we'll see what happens. Time is ticking for the Warriors in this free agency situation because a lot of players are flying off the board real fast. Thank you so much for watching. Plenty more to come this offseason. Until next time.